What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot of volleyball to get into, such as SMU doing it again. They take down number 1 in 5 in Dallas, Texas. Are the Mustangs for real? And how about Utah posting a pair of big Big 12 upsets as they took down Baylor and TCU at home via sweep? Are the Utes underrated, and should they be on everyone's radar? Also, how about South Carolina? The Gamecocks sweeping Florida in Florida for the first time in a hot minute. What is going on with the SEC as Texas seems to be the only team that is the strongest dominant? We also have some AVC news as April Ross announces her retirement at the end of the AVCA League. And we have some high school girls volleyball to discuss as the UCLA are right around the corner. Academy of Volleyball, set connect. Remember, there's some volleyball action here on Set Point. It's Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday wherever you're listening from or watching from. Either way, you've made your way into episode 268 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without iSports Radio providing the platform to go live on StreamYard. Please do follow iSports Radio on several different social media platforms such as X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Also, make sure to subscribe to iSports Radio on YouTube. We're trying to hit 1,000 followers by the end of probably November. We're trying to reach 500 by the end of August. And with your help, we can make that goal happen. iSports Radio is also available on other podcast platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, CastBox, Deezer, JioSaavn, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, you name it. And make sure to check out our website, iSportsRadio.com, for all of your latest sports news, our blog, our page dedicated to each podcast, such as Set Point, our merchandise shop where you can cop t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and all sorts of iSports Radio swag. Also, make sure to check out our Hall of Fame, as I am part of the Hall of Fame, and much more. For the last 10 years, iSports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports stadiums around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making iSports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. The way you can follow Set Point on social media is on X, formerly known as Twitter, at set_point.ie, and on Instagram, at set_point.iesr. And you can follow me, Teran Rodriguez, at Teran Rodriguez1 on X, formerly known as Twitter. Also, Facebook is available on, or Set Point is available on Facebook. So, before we get on into the volleyball action, let us pay a little bit of, let's pay the bills a little. Let's pay tribute to our sponsors, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, and Seal the Deal Wax Seals, as well as talk to you all about what iSports Radio is all about. So without any further delay, let's get on in to our sponsors.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky and Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. And also make sure to check out iSportsRadio.com for all of your latest sports news, as well as definitely check out what Set Point is all about, as well as all of our other amazing shows. Like I said, subscribe to us on YouTube. If we get to 500 subs by the end of this month, I might do a little something special. But that could only happen with your help. All right, let's get on into the volleyball action as week 7 was quite the doozy. Oh, my goodness. It was, we all know the elephant in the room. SMU defeated Pitt in 5, which I thought was very impressive. I think we could all agree that that was the big headline of the weekend. So, in my opinion, it was just an amazing week overall. I even got to check out some volleyball action over the weekend in terms of college volleyball, which I thought was pretty solid, but more on that a little later. So as for the beginning of week 7, so week 7 obviously began last Monday, but there weren't any overly exciting matches that day. On Tuesday, We only had Dayton beating Duquesne in 4, or Duquesne in 4. Big deal. We all know Dayton's probably going to run through the A10 conference. As before we continue, we got to salute Marcus Los. Great. He says, salute, Teran. Well, salute to you too, Marcus. I appreciate you for popping into the chat room. Interact with me. Ask me some questions about about volleyball. I will gladly interact with anything volleyball related. And no, dead or alive volleyball does not count. So don't even try to ask me about that. But the action began on Wednesday, where we had number 1 Pitt sweeping number 15 SMU. Okay, the first set was rather tight, but Pitt was able to win that first set and eventually sweep through the Mustangs. This took place at Fitzgerald Fieldhouse. Obviously, Pitt is a very talented team. Boston College did take a set off them, but let's be honest, it's just one set. You got to win 3, as Paul Sunderland said. So Pitt beating SMU started off the week fully. And then we also had number 11 Oregon sweeping number 16 USC. Now, if USC wants to maybe host in terms of the NCAA tournament, at least for the first couple rounds, they're actually going to need to pull off some upsets. They did a great job of doing so against Minnesota, but playing on the road is so difficult. I get it, but they have to woo the committee and say USC deserves to be a top 16 seed. Unfortunately, USC kind of in the second set was close, but USC just could not pull off that second set win, and they eventually got swept. Oregon's still a good team. Oregon has a lot of talent, like Mimi Collier, Michelle Owobete, Oni Afobu, Mackenzie Morris. Their setter's also pretty darn good. So USC just kind of got a little bit of, I wouldn't say humble pie, but they kind of got smacked on the road. Winning at Galen Center is one thing, but winning on the road is a whole different story. So USC, if they want to be proven as contenders, or if they want to be proven as a team that deserves to host the first couple rounds, they're going to have to pull off some sort of upset here and there. They can't just keep beating teams at Galen Center. It just does not work that way. We also had number 13 Arizona State taking down Arizona in 4. That was a nice little rivalry matchup right there. But honestly, this was not too surprising. Arizona State would beat Arizona. They're still having a fantastic season. Jelly Sear is just straight up balling for Arizona State. And we also had an upset on Wednesday. UCLA down number 24 Washington in 4. Now, the UCLA almost got taken to a 5th set. They were up by quite a good margin. I think they were up by 4 or 5. Washington eventually chipped away at the lead. It was eventually 23-23, but those gutty little Bruins gutted out the win. Now, this is a good step in the right direction for UCLA. After losing to Minnesota in 5 and losing to Michigan in 5, UCLA got a nice solid win. It's not the flashiest win, but I think UCLA is on that path of they can make it to the NCAA tournament. They've missed the NCAA tournament the past 2 seasons ever so narrowly. They were the first few out last year, and I think they were the first 4 out the previous year. But I think Alfie Reft has a fantastic team. It's not going to wow everybody. They're not going to beat the big Big Ten teams such as Nebraska or Wisconsin or anyone of that sort, but they're still going to be pulling off an upset or 2. Then on Thursday, we had Kansas sweeping West Virginia, but okay, that's not surprising. But then we also had Utah sweeping number 17 TCU. Now, I've been saying that Utah is a very under-the-radar team for quite some time. Utah is very well coached. Let's get that out of the way. And obviously, Utah hasn't really been on everyone's radar. They just haven't had that big win, and obviously they've kind of been through a little bit of a rebuild stage. But beating TCU is still a very good and big deal. I think Utah really proved that they can hang with the big-time teams. Now, can they win the Big 12? Perhaps, but they're going to have to upend Arizona State, or they're going to have to upend Kansas. They've got the Holy War this week, but more on that a little later. Speaking of the other Holy War team, we had number 23 BYU sweeping Baylor at BYU. Now, this was a big win for BYU. This was the week where BYU had to really come up big on its home floor, because if a couple more losses or bad losses would have probably knocked them out of the top 25. And that's a rarity to see if you're BYU or you're a BYU fan. So a very good win for BYU winning at home. It's not surprising just because Smith Fieldhouse is such a tough place to play at. And then Friday, oh man, the match that headlined Friday, we had number 2 Nebraska outlasting number 10 Purdue. Nebraska dodged a match point in set 5, and they were able to win. I'm pretty sure the sound barrier at the Bob was broken, just because I heard it was one of the loudest the Bob has ever been. And this is one of those times where I wish I were in Nebraska. I really wish I could have gone to that match, but I have another life, which it's unfortunate. But unfortunately for Purdue, they just missed out on what could have been a big-time win. Eva Hudson and Chloe Chicoine both were phenomenal. They combined for 48 kills, but it just wasn't enough. Merritt Beeson was her for Nebraska. And also, I think it was Harper Murray. From what I saw in the statistics, she was served 53 times and she only had 1 reception error. For all my friends who love the passing stat or love reception statistics. So I thought that was a big win for Nebraska. I knew they would get challenged because they won the first set, lost the second and third. They were able to eke out the 4th set, and they were able to eke out the 5th set. But that is what Big Ten volleyball is all about, and that was probably the match of the week. And I got to give a tip of the hat to Nebraska. I think Nebraska is still that team. Yes, they still have the early season loss to SMU, but that was still early in the season. Come on. We're not going to fault Nebraska that much, are we? Then we had number 3 Penn State beating Michigan State on Friday. We had number 5 Stanford sweeping Syracuse. We had number 6 Creighton sweeping Villanova. Number 9 Wisconsin swept Maryland. We had number 14 Minnesota sweeping Indiana. We had number 19 Florida beating Mississippi State in 4. Number 20 Georgia Tech swept Virginia Tech. We had number 22 Dayton sweeping Loyola of Chicago. I expected a little better from those Ramblers, but Dayton is the real deal. And then also on Friday, we had number 4 Louisville outlasting Florida State in 5 sets. This was something I did not expect. I did not expect this. I was very, very, very surprised that Louisville needed 5 to take down Florida State. But it just shows how good the Seminoles are. But Louisville just had that extra gear. They have the experience. They just have the talent that they have all across the board. And Louisville just is them. So a great ACC battle, but unfortunately for Florida State, they fall short. So it is what it is, though. Then on Saturday, we had the match as Ralph Calise, he says, "Hello, Teran, the volleyball master. Have a tremendous show. Let's go." Thank you, Ralph. Yes, that little thumbs up bubble right there. Ralph, I hate to tell you this because I know you're a Pitt fan, but Nebraska is no longer, or not Nebraska, Pitt is no longer undefeated. They lost in 5 to number 15 SMU. Now, don't feel too bad about that just because SMU did sweep Nebraska earlier in the season. But, oh, man, Pitt, that's very unfortunate that they lost that one. They're up 2-1 in the match. SMU wound up winning the 4th set 25-23. It was pretty much all SMU in that 5th set, especially in the second half of that 5th set. They really kicked it into high gear. Unfortunately for Pitt, they suffer their first loss of the season. But SMU is the real deal. If there's one thing to take away from that matchup, it's this. SMU is just straight up phenomenal, and I think they belong in the ACC in terms of women's volleyball, at least. So very proud. SMU should be very proud. If it weren't for those 4 other losses, I would consider SMU being a top 10 team, if not top 5 team. But SMU is making their name known in the ACC, and I really think SMU deserves to host. I know it's a little early to say that, but SMU is very well deserving of being a top 16 seed. Now, they're going to get tested this week as they host Stanford this week, but More on that later, but this was just a great win for SMU. Now, for Pitt, the big takeaway is this. Their winning streak was bound to be broken, but the silver lining is it's better they lost in ACC play than losing in the NCAA tournament, because if you are undefeated going into the NCAA tournament, then the target on your back gets bigger. So a tough loss for Pitt, but hey, there's still plenty of season left. Your season isn't defined by one match. You got to get off the mat, because this week they also have Stanford, and it's going to be on national TV. So for Pitt, if I were them, I'd brush myself off the mat and get back at it. Then we also had number 2, Nebraska sweeping Rutgers. That's no surprise. Number 5, Stanford swept Boston College. No surprise. Number 6, Creighton swept St. John's. A little surprising, just because I thought St. John's wasn't too bad. They're kind of that third banana in the ACC, but overall for St. John's, they kind of ran into a buzzsaw against number 6 Creighton. We had Kansas sweeping Cincinnati on the road. Purdue took down Iowa in 4. They kind of had a little bit of a hangover from the loss against Nebraska, but that was because it was the second of a back-to-back, and they were still on the road. So we can allow Purdue to get a little bit of a pass. Now, if they lost against Iowa, then I'd be a little concerned, but it is what it is. Yeah, number 13, Arizona State sweeping Texas Tech. Number 14, Minnesota sweeping Maryland. Number 17, TCU outlasting number 23, BYU. Nice bounce back win for the Horned Frogs. I knew they would pick up the win. However, I feel they could have done a little bit more without the dramatics. But it was a late night game, and TCU was able to outlast BYU, and that was a great win on their behalf. And then Utah swept number 18, Baylor. Again, huge win for Utah. Great weekend overall. That's kind of the reason why I picked them as my team of the week. I mean, I could have picked SMU, but they had that sweep where they just got I wouldn't say manhandled, but they just got swept up by Pitt. So Utah, in my opinion, was a little bit more deserving of the team of the week for week 7 in my book. So good work to Utah. Then, like I mentioned, Dayton swept Loyola Chicago. Again, I feel the gap between Dayton and the second best team in the A-10 is a wide gap than most people expected. So great job to Dayton. They're probably going to run through that conference. And last year, as we all know, they lost the A-10 final to Loyola Chicago, and Loyola Chicago wound up dancing in the night to the NCAA tournament. Now this year, Dayton is pretty much – it looks like Dayton has – a firm grip on the number as the representative from the A-10, but a lot could happen, especially in that conference tournament. I forgot to mention on Friday that UC Davis upended Hawaii on the road in 4. Now, obviously, Hawaii is not the Hawaii that most people expect, but Davis beat Hawaii it's for the first time in Hawaii. And it's for the first time in probably a hot minute. I don't recall the last time Davis last beat Hawaii. I want to say it was like 2018 or 19. But Davis, they're kind of that sneaky good under the radar team. And don't look now, but Davis actually had won 5 in a row. Remember when they lost to Long Beach State to start Big West Conference play? I forgot that too. They wound up winning 5 in a row. They took down Cal Poly, which I think was a good win. Hawaii is another good win right there. So Davis looks like one of the more better teams in the Big West Conference. I know they still got plenty of Big West to go, but Davis, Long Beach State, Hawaii, Cal Poly, those 4 look like the teams that might come out of the Big West. Also, on Saturday, I went to UC Irvine, UC Santa Barbara at the Brent Event Center. It was the first week that UC Irvine played at the Brent Event Center. It was the first weekend they played at the Brent Event Center. And honestly, I was impressed by UC Irvine. They came out flat in the first set. They lost, and they were also coming off a loss to Cal Poly, which, I mean, it's Cal Poly. they have a lot of talent on the team. But the first set, they lost 25-21. Second set, they wound up winning it 25-13. The third set, oh my God, the third set, UCI was down by as many as 10. I was thinking, well, this one I think is wrapped up. But they managed to make a comeback, and they came back from 10 points down to win the third set 25-23. Now, it was a little bit of a controversial back row attacker violation. I thought it was an under the net violation, but that's so big right there for UC Irvine. And then UC Santa Barbara also led 21-18 in set 4 and then conceded a 7-0 run. Now, the takeaway for UC Irvine is this. I've been singing praises about UC Irvine when it comes to their team. I think they have such an underrated team. They've got such talent on the team, and they're even more complemented with Katie Smith. They also have Campbell Jensen, who's a fantastic libero. Nicole Feliciano is a fantastic setter. I'm trying to think who else they had. Hunter Riedel is back at the right side for UC Irvine. I really think that this UC Irvine team can be such a dark horse team to win the Big West Conference. But, again, there's plenty of season left. They've got Long Beach State and UC San Diego this week. It'll be interesting to see what happens to the Anteaters. And then closing off week 7, we had on national TV, we had number 7 Texas taking down number 12 Kentucky in 3. I was very surprised Texas wound up sweeping Kentucky, but Texas is really good at volleyball. Let's get this out of the way. But Kentucky, well, I will just say I'm not too surprised that they lost, but Texas is just a freaking buzzsaw. And Reagan Rutherford kind of got her her homecoming, and she made the most of it. This is on national TV, by the way. Also on Sunday, we had number 3 Penn State having a grueling battle against Indiana. All the sets were close. I think they were decided by 3 points or less, as Penn State wound up winning in 4. Louisville took down Miami and Coral Gables in 4. Wisconsin swept Northwestern. That wasn't too much of a surprise. Number 11, Oregon took down Washington in 5, and it looked like Oregon was going to lose that 5th set. They were down 9-4 in that 5th set, and then I think they went on a 7-0 run or 8-0 run to eventually win the match. Oh, man, that was such a big win for Oregon. But did they really have to go 5 with Washington? Nah, they probably couldn't have. Elsewhere in the Big Ten, on the West Coast, we had USC outlasting UCLA in 5. UCLA was down 8-5 in set 5, and then they used an 11-3 run to take the match, which I wish I could have gone. I really wish I could have gone to that match. I really want to go to USC UCLA. I thought that was a really good game, and I'm kicking myself for not going to. But Sunday is kind of my second job work day, and it's unfortunate that I missed it, but it is what it is. USC, I thought, was solid, and they needed that bounce back win. They couldn't afford to lose 2 in a row, just because I think their schedule is starting to pick up a little. Then we had another stunner in the SEC. We had South Carolina sweeping Florida at Florida. It's the first time in a hot minute since Florida has lost to South Carolina on its home floor. But, man, the Gamecocks. I always expect South Carolina to pull off some sort of upset in the SEC. But to sweep Florida? God, Florida is just not the Florida that we've all come to know. And this is with a good portion of their players that they got back from injury. So if I'm a Florida fan, I'm starting to become a little bit concerned. Then we had number 25 Auburn taking down Mississippi State in 4. Florida State took down Notre Dame in 4. And then Georgia Tech swept Virginia. That was a good win just because Virginia is a pretty good team, if you ask me. So Virginia was good, but Georgia Tech playing in O'Keefe is just so much better. They're a whole different team when playing in O'Keefe. But I digress. It was a good win for Georgia Tech. And that is going to do it for week 7 of the NCAA women's volleyball season. Going over the AVCA / Terraflex Top 25 women's poll for this week. The top 11 still stays the same, as no one moved from that. Number 12 is now SMU, which I thought was pretty darn cool to see them jump up to the top 15. You have Kentucky falling down to 15. USC stays put. Georgia Tech moves up 3 spots, which I thought was nice. TCU is still in that top 20. Florida State jumps into the top 20. Utah jumps into the top 25. If you heard me on Saturday, you saw me saying that Utah deserves to be in the top 25. Those 2 wins alone against those ranked opponents, I know they were at home, but they were still pretty darn impressive. So Utah is in the top 25. It's the first time they're in the top 25 since the preseason of 2022. That's how long it's been since Utah was last in the top 25. So great work to Beth Lanier, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and the rest of the Utah Utes. 21 is Dayton, 22 is Baylor, Florida is 23, BYU is 24, and Auburn is 25. Only team to drop out was Washington, for a good reason. All right, but that is that for the AVCA top 25. I think they kind of got it right. I feel maybe SMU deserves to be a little bit higher, but they still have those 4 losses, one of which was to Pitt, and then one of which was to LMU, which actually had a great weekend. They actually took down Pepperdine and San Diego, which those 2 teams are really good opponents. So the fact that LMU now is pretty much, I would say, in the driver's seat, but now they have the leg up on Pepperdine as well as San Diego in the West Coast Conference. That's so big right there. So great job to those teams right there and every team that I mentioned. And let's look ahead to week 8. So week 8 is going to be a little bit more quieter of a week. The fun won't begin until Wednesday when Stanford travels to SMU. Let's see if the Mustangs have another top 5 win in them in the ACC, or a top 5 win in general. Sorry about that. And then we have Arizona State versus Houston. I mean, if Houston wants to make the tournament, or at least put them in the conversation to be in the NCAA tournament, this is probably the game where they want to win. You have number 15 Kentucky playing at Tennessee. Same with Tennessee. If Tennessee wants to solidify them as close to being in the NCAA tournament, a win over Kentucky would do that. And I think Tennessee wants to beat Kentucky. You have number 17 Georgia Tech playing Clemson. Nah. Number 18 TCU playing Texas Tech. Number 24 BYU playing Iowa State. And then number 25 Auburn playing at Alabama. So not anything too eye-popping. Then we jump to Thursday. Kansas State at Kansas. Number 8 Kansas. Sneaky good match right there, just because this matchup is definitely underrated. This rivalry is underrated just because you love these in-state rivalries. But I just think Kansas State, and no offense to my good friend Steve Astor, former Set Point guest, is not going to come out on top against number 8 Kansas. Then we have number 10 Purdue hosting UCLA. If UCLA wants to get back in that top 25, this would be the win to make their statement. Number 22 Baylor hosts Cincinnati. Nah, it's not that. That's exciting, but oh well. Then we jump to Friday. We have number 1 Pitt playing Cal at home. Okay, there's that. Then number 2 Nebraska at Michigan State. Maybe Michigan State can challenge Nebraska, but Nebraska's playing really good as of late. Number 3 Penn State at Ohio State. That's a sneaky good matchup just because Ohio State, which just recently broke its attendance record, actually is for real. I mean, I'm clapping because that's really great for Ohio State. But maybe Penn State can get challenged by Ohio State. I mean, they got challenged by Indiana. Maybe Ohio State can challenge Penn State. You have number 4 Louisville hosting Wake Forest. Not that great. Number 6 Creighton versus Xavier. So the last time we kind of saw Xavier and Creighton face one another, Xavier kind of pulled off an upset, which I thought was pretty good. If Creighton thinks they're going to walk into into what did they play at the SoCo Arena, or then they have another thing coming. If they think they're going to walk in at home and get the easy dub, they have another thing coming. Number 7, Texas hosts Arkansas. Arkansas is kind of that number 26, 27 team in the AVCA polls. Maybe they could challenge Texas to get back in that top 25, but they're going to need to play with all their heart. They're going to need to play like they did against Kentucky in the NCAA tournament. You have number 11, Oregon, at number 3, Wisconsin. That's going to be a fun one. If Oregon really wants to prove themselves, beating Wisconsin would be the biggest step in the right direction. Colorado at number 13, Arizona State's another solid matchup. Colorado's so underrated, but I really would like to see them pulling off a big win. Big win as a ranked win. You have number 14, Minnesota at Rutgers. Not that great of a matchup. No offense. Number 16, USC at Maryland. Yeah, there's that. Number 17, Georgia Tech at Clemson. There's that. Number 19, Florida State at Boston College. There's that. George Washington at number 21, Dayton. There's that. Number 23, Florida at Texas A&M. If Florida somehow loses that one, I could see them jumping out of the top 25. Florida is really going to need to start playing some better volleyball. I know they don't have the bite that they had back in the old days, but I will say this just feels like the Florida that we haven't gotten in years past. But we'll see. And then a sneaky good matchup on Friday, and I really hate to pull out the Big West Conference card. UC Irvine at Long Beach State. It's a rivalry game, and this can be a little bit of a revenge game for UC Irvine, because remember, Long Beach State did end UC Irvine's season last year. So I imagine that's going to be factored in terms of the rivalry. And rivalry games are just so underrated. Rivalry games like that are so underrated. Saturday, we have Nebraska at Ohio State. Maybe Nebraska can get challenged by Ohio State. Just maybe. They're going to need a big turnout like they had previously, like they had last weekend. You have number 8, Kansas at UCF. Indiana at number 10, Purdue. This is an underrated matchup. Another rivalry matchup. If Indiana can challenge Penn State like they can Purdue, maybe, just maybe they could pull out the win. You have Cincinnati at number 18, TCU. There's that. You have number 20, Utah at number 24, BYU. Let's see if Utah can keep up this momentum. I want to see Utah take down BYU at BYU. The Holy War, baby. It never gets old. Then George Washington plays number 21, Dayton. Yeah, we already know that. Sunday on ESPN, this is the big matchup. Number 5, Stanford at number 1, Pitt. Oh boy, strap yourselves in, buckle up, grab a beverage of your choosing, get your snacks, because that one is going to be a barn burner. I hope it's a barn burner. Then we have number 14, Minnesota at number 3, Penn State. If Penn State plays like they did against Indiana, Minnesota's going to beat them. But if Minnesota plays how they played against USC, then Penn State should have no problem. Regardless, both these teams are going to show up and show out in this Big Ten matchup, and it's going to be fun. NC State at Louisville, at number 4, Louisville, also is on Sunday. Maybe NC State can challenge Louisville, but I don't know. I don't think NC State is the NC State of last year. You have DePaul at number 6, Creighton. Georgia at number 7, Texas. Number 9, Wisconsin at Michigan. Maybe Michigan can challenge number 9, Wisconsin. Michigan isn't a bad team, but they have not proven themselves. I want to see Michigan prove themselves this weekend. The number 11, Oregon at Iowa. Cal at number 12, SMU. Stanford. Why are there something's wrong here? Why is SMU playing 2 matches? Anyway, this is courtesy of the NCAA site. Anyway, other than that, number 15, Kentucky plays at Alabama. Number 16, USC plays at Rutgers. USC better have the 2-0 weekend for their sake, because if they don't, we have a problem. Number 19, Florida State plays Syracuse. Number 23, Florida plays at LSU. Again, if Florida loses one, if not both of their matches this week, I think they're not going to be out. No, we don't need the balloons. Florida's going to be out of the top 25. Plain and simple. Then you got number 25, Auburn at Tennessee. That is a sneaky good matchup. I want to see Tennessee actually prove themselves this weekend. If they can, then maybe they can consider themselves into the NCAA tournament and maybe, just maybe, get back in that top 25. But that's going to do it for all of the notable matchups for this weekend. We're going to take ourselves a quick commercial break. When we come back, we have the NCAA Women's Volleyball RPI to go over, as well as some AVP League action, as well as April Ross's retirement. Keep it locked here. You were listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, New York? This is Ricky K coming at you with the NY State of Sports, a new show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Listen to me every Thursday afternoon as we bring you the latest takes on the Yankees, Mets, Jets, Giants, Knicks, Nets, Rangers, Devils, and Islanders. Plus, you get some college hoops and what's the local sports events going on in the area. It's a state that never sleeps, so why not get the opinions and sports takes that never sleep? Again, every Thursday, 2 p.m. to the NY State of Sports. We'll see you then.
And we are back with Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows, such as NY State of Sports and Let's Whine About DMV Sports. Sorry about the little delay there, but without any further delay, let's get on into the RPI, as the NCAA Women's Volleyball RPI was just released yesterday morning. So Louisville is on top of the RPI, followed by Nebraska, Creighton, Pitt, Penn State, Stanford, Texas, Oregon, SMU, and Kansas to round off the top 10. And there's obviously the notable teams that are from the top 25. Some notable teams that I did see in the RPI is Rice, which is from the American Athletic Conference, which I think is pretty cool right there. Got North Carolina in the top 27 in terms of RPI. Illinois is knocking on that door when it comes to the top 25 of the RPI. Illinois has had such an underrated season. Texas A&M is in the top 25 of the RPI, which I think is pretty cool right there. And then Virginia is in the top 35 of the RPI. South Dakota State, I should make note, South Dakota State is the only undefeated team remaining in NCAA Women's Volleyball Division I with Pitt losing. I've said that on X, formerly on Twitter. Now you know. So South Dakota State is 36 in the RPI. Miami is 37. Ole Miss is 38, which I think is pretty cool. UTEP in the Conference USA is 39. And this one sticks out to me quite a bit just because I'm such a big West head. Long Beach State is 43rd in the RPI. So they are a top 50 team in the RPI. Now, obviously, that's because they played Pitt this year, and they also played Oregon. They also played Arizona State, which is looking really good. And obviously, Natalie Regan talked about playing a tough schedule. And I also talked with her in the post-game press conference following the Hawaii match, and she said that the Big West is really good in volleyball, and unfortunately, they just don't get the recognition that it deserves and the love that it deserves. I totally agree. And I guess to make note of some of the other Big West Conference teams in the the first RPI rankings, you have UC Davis at 56, you have Cal Poly at number 60, and Hawaii's at 67. Now, from what I heard, if you're not in the top 85, this is from what I heard, then you're going to need a miracle to get in or a 10-game winning streak, which those are the only Big West Conference teams. You got UT Arlington in the WAC, San Diego in the West Coast Conference, Bowling Green in the MAC. So the list goes on and on when it comes to a lot of these names in the RPI. But the Big West kind of stood out to me just because Ashley Hayne, UC Irvine's women's volleyball coach, also said that they have a lot of teams in the top 100 in terms of the RPI. And that top 80 is that little echelon where if you're in it, then you might have a shot. But if you're not in it, then you might be in trouble. And keep in mind, this is just from an outside source that said if you're not in the top 85, then you're going to need a miracle. Don't take it from me. Take it from that outside source. Speaking of UC Irvine, they're 121st in the RPI. So don't be surprised if they give Long Beach State a sweatshop of a match. I could see UC Irvine and Long Beach State probably going 5 because UC Irvine does have an underrated roster. And Long Beach State, even though their record, I mean, they're 11. What are they? 11-5, but their losses have come against really darn good teams. And no, I'm not trying to be a defender or a homer for them. They lost to Oregon, Pitt, Arizona State, Washington, which was in the top 25, and Hawaii, Hawaii is the reigning Big West Conference champion. So you have that. So there you have it right there. That's kind of the RPI. That's kind of some of the notables in the RPI. I mean, in the top 50, the final team in the top 50 is Tennessee. Northern Iowa is 49. UCLA is 48. Yale is 47. That is a team that has kind of been putting its conference, the Ivy League, on notice. And then you have LMU at 45, which I think is pretty cool. Wright State with some of their big wins early in the season. They're in the top 40, 45. So you have that right there. Florida is number 40. So that's quite fascinating if you ask me. But that's pretty much that for the RPI. That's kind of my little take right there. Let me know what you think about the RPI, and just let me know about anything else volleyball related. And oh God, not the glitch thing again. All right. Anyway, but that is that for some NCAA women's volleyball. So jumping over to the AVP. So the AVP had some news that was broken earlier in the day. This was released 7 hours ago, courtesy of Instagram, where April Ross said that she's announcing retirement from the from the AVP, and I think from beach volleyball altogether. So, yeah, April Ross announces her retirement from beach volleyball. This is going to be at the end of the AVP league. As we all know, she and Alex Kleinman are basically partners. They're the A team, but you also got to remember April Ross is a mother, which mommyhood obviously comes before volleyball. So you have that right there. So all in all, I knew this was kind of going to happen eventually. I just feel that April Ross has been doing this for quite some time. She's been in a bunch of Olympics. She wound up winning gold with Alex Kleinman. And she even got to face Misty May and Carrie Walsh Jennings. So April Ross, I just got to say, as a Newport Harbor alum, because I am a proud Newport Harbor alum, I just got to say it was an honor seeing you take the court, whether it was at USC or whether it was on the beach. And you had a fantastic career. And I really hope I'm able to catch at least some sort of your final few matches. So that's that for that for that little bit of AVP news. So as for week 5, week 5 took us all the way to Palm Beach, where the Palm Beach Passion was able to host. So looking at Palm Beach at the week 5 of the AVP the AVP league at Palm Beach, this took place at the Delray Beach Tennis Center. So the first match on the women's side was the New York Nitro versus the Miami Mayhem, where the Nitro took down the Mayhem in straight sets 15-13 and 15-10. Now, if I recall correctly, the Mayhem has April Ross and Alex Kleinman. So, and the Nitro have Sarah Hughes and Kelly Chang. So the new school Olympians took on kind of the old school Olympians. I can't really say old school just because April Ross and Alex Kleinman were only we're in 2024. They're only 3 years removed from being Olympians and winning that gold. But yeah, you had the New York Nitro taking down the Miami Mayhem, which I thought was a pretty good win. And then on the men's side, you had the New York Nitro taking down the Miami Mayhem in a barn burner, 8-5, 15-12, and 15-11. That was the first half of the Saturday matches. The second half of the Saturday matches, you had the Brooklyn Blaze winning a thriller against the Palm Beach Passion, 18-16, 15-13, and 16-14. And then that was on the men's side. I'm sorry. On the men's side, you had the Brooklyn Blaze taking down the Palm Beach Passion in a thriller. Avery Drost, my guy, why you got to do this to me? I really want to see you in the AVP League playoffs, and only the top 4 teams make the playoffs. You can't be losing these matches. And then on the women's side, you had the Palm Beach Passion sweeping the Brooklyn Blaze 15-9 and 15-10. And that rounded off all of Saturday's matches. On Sunday, we had the Miami Mayhem taking on the Palm Beach Passion on the women's side, where the Mayhem took down the Passion in 13-15, 15-11, and 15-9. So good win for the Mayhem. And then on the men's side, we had the Miami Mayhem taking down the Palm Beach Passion in straight sets 15-13 and 15-11. Then on Sunday, to close off the Palm Beach week of week 5, we had the New York Nitro taking down the Brooklyn Blaze in 3 sets, 13-15, 15-13, and 15-11. Great win by Sean Cook and Taylor. The New York Nitro is Taylor Sander and Taylor Crabb, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to double check that, but honestly, the Nitro, they're on one in terms of this season. And then on the women's side, you had the Brooklyn Blaze sweeping the New York Nitro. That's actually the first loss for the New York Nitro on the women's side, as Therese Cannon and Megan Kraft took down the new school of okay, I wouldn't say new school, the semi-old school of USC. So the semi-new school of USC took down the semi-old school of USC. 15-12 and 15-9. But that's a great win for Megan Kraft and Therese Cannon, just because they're both USC alums and they took down some USC legends, especially those that were Olympians. So there you have it right there in terms of week 5. So I know not every team has played the exact number of matches, but the New York Nitro has a firm grip on first place. It's not looking like they're going to be relinquishing first place soon. They are 10-2. Second place, and tied for second place, is the New York Nitro, who has 5 wins and 3 losses. The Miami Mayhem are 7-5. They sit at 4th, which is actually the cutoff for the postseason. And then the LA Launch are 5th. They're 3-5. The Brooklyn Blaze and Palm Beach Passion are both 4-8. And the San Diego Smash are bringing up the rear at 2-6. So we now jump over to week 6 of the AVP League as we head to Oceanside. So only 1 week away till I get to go to the AVP League, where it'll be held in Anaheim at the Honda Center. Anyway, this will take place at the Front Wave Arena as the Brooklyn Blaze on the women's side take on the Dallas Dream. And then after the women's match, you'll get the men's match. Then following that match, you have on the men's side, the Miami Mayhem playing the LA Launch. And then the women's side of the Miami Mayhem and the LA Launch will close off the Saturday matches. Then on Sunday, the women's side kicks off with the Dallas Dream and the LA Launch. And then the men's match between the Dallas Dream and the LA Launch will follow up. Then the men's match between the Brooklyn Blaze and the Miami Mayhem will take place. And then the Brooklyn Blaze and the Miami Mayhem will be closing off week number 6. So if I recall correctly, and I'm looking at this very carefully, this is going to be the Miami Mayhem's last 4 matches. So after this, it's out of their hands. So the Miami Mayhem, they have 7 wins. If they go perfect 4-0, they can inch ever so close to making the postseason, and that would be so big right there. Just because this is the last dance for April Ross I'm not sure about Alex Kleinman, but we're going to be seeing the end of an era when it comes to April Ross. And we all know April Ross is going to look to go out on top. But yeah, there's that for the AVP League. I'm bummed that my buddy Avery Drost, former set point guest Avery Drost, and his partner Phil Dalhauser didn't get any wins. I know on the women's side, Melissa Jimana Paredes and Brandy Wilkerson picked up a win for the Palm Beach Passion, but unfortunately, they just could not get that win. So they just aren't moving the needle. It's not looking too good for them making the postseason because you got to finish top 4, and they're tied for 6th with the Brooklyn Blaze. So the Passion is really going to need to turn up the heat. Fortunately for them, they have this week off, and they are back in action in week 7 when they play in Anaheim, and you know your boy's going to be there. All right, but that is that for week 6, the week 6 preview of the AVP League. We're going to take one last commercial break. When we come back, we've got some high school girls volleyball to discuss, and then we've got the news of John Hawks taking over as UCLA's men's volleyball coach. Keep it locked here. You were listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernan.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the 08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies.
And your one-timers.
You wicked wristas.
And be sure to protect your five-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
And we are back with the final segment of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all of that sports. Definitely check out Adam Karnick on Mondays with Chi-Town Weekly, and on Tuesdays with the Neutral Zone with Zach Puplis. Let's get on into some high school girls volleyball. So a lot happened in the high school girls volleyball scene last week, especially in California, which is kind of my neck of the woods. But yeah, we had Mater Dei locking up the Trinity League title with sweeps over Santa Margarita and J. Sarah. Now, this is not surprising, and this is no knock on Santa Margarita or J. Sarah, but Mater Dei is just them. I think they are looking more and more complete and scary by the day. And honestly, this isn't surprising that they were able to take care of business. Now, I will say, I just beg the question, who is going to challenge Mater Dei this year? Who is going to challenge Mater Dei in terms of like the CIF Southern Section playoffs? I mean, you've got Sierra Canyon, Mira Costa, maybe Redondo Union, maybe Los Alamitos or Huntington Beach, but Mater Dei just looks so good. And even when they're behind, they just continue to find ways to win. And that is so scary when it comes to the girls volleyball scene. I just think they look like such a good and complete team. It's really amazing if you ask me. So all in all for Mater Dei, they just look very impressive by the day. And Wesley Mataveo, Lely Ostavar, all those players just look so good in terms of like their roster. And it's not just their underclassmen, their upperclassmen just looks impressive. And Dan O'Dell has done an outstanding job when it comes to their program. So great job to Mater Dei. And that was one thing that happened. Now, another thing that happened was Los Alamitos beating Huntington Beach in 4, which I thought was very impressive if you ask me. Now, this was a big win for Los Alamitos. Not only did they win at Huntington Beach for the first time since 2013, but they wound up clinching at least a share of they haven't clinched at least a share of the Sunset League title just yet, but they've clinched a share of they're tied for first in the Sunset League with one match remaining. So Los Alamitos plays Fountain Valley tomorrow as of this recording, and then Huntington Beach plays at Corona Del Mar tomorrow. I'm pretty sure we're going to see both those teams win. But for Los Alamitos, this is such a big win for them. I said last week that Sierra Canyon was probably their biggest win in a hot minute, at least in the regular season. The Huntington Beach win at Huntington Beach probably overtakes that, which I think is really cool if you ask me. Now, as for the CIF Southern Section in terms of girls volleyball, number 1 is surprisingly Sierra Canyon. I'm very surprised why Sierra Canyon is number 1 and not Mater Dei. So I think it is pretty cool if you ask me. But it's also really interesting. Does Mater Dei lose out on the number 1 seed, or will they be or with that head-to-head that they have over Sierra Canyon, do they jump to the number 1 seed? Does Sierra Canyon, with that win over Marymount last week, stay put at number 1? It's really going to boil down to a lot of mathematics and numbers. Because Sierra Canyon, but I mean, as good as Sierra Canyon has been, and I know they're number 1 in California via Max Preps, as good as they are, they kind of have that head-to-head loss to Mater Dei. So I know it was the best 3 out of 5, but you still kind of have to wonder, has Sierra Canyon played the competition that Mater Dei has? I mean, I'm not going to say Mater Dei should be the number 1 seed, but until I see some sort of further notice, or if we compare the team schedules and see what looks better, I just feel that Mater Dei deserves the 1 seed and Sierra Canyon deserves the 2 seed. Marymount is number 3 in terms of the CIF Southern Section girls volleyball rankings, which is just exclusive to the Southern Section. So when it comes to the whole CIF Southern Section, it's going to be placing teams in divisions at the end of the season. So it's not going to be like this year, or it's not going to be like years past where every team got put into division at the beginning of the season. Everyone that qualifies for the playoffs is now going to get put into a division at the end of the season. And only the top 8 teams will be in Division 1, which means they will advance to state. The girls volleyball brackets for the CIF Southern Section playoffs are released this Friday. So I think that's going to be very fun, if you ask me. So it's going to be a time will tell process, but I hope we get some really good matchups. And I imagine they're still going to keep the pool play format. I don't think they're going to get rid of pool play, but who knows? Maybe they I hear that they might get rid of that in the near future, but it's not set in stone. So don't worry on if you're thinking it might go back to an 18 playoff bracket or it might go to pool play. So time will tell. All right, but that is that for that little spiel of high school girls volleyball from last week. I know Sierra Canyon's win over Marymount was pretty darn impressive. They beat them in 4, so I would say that it was not overly surprising, but I'm not too surprised that Sierra Canyon would beat Marymount when it truly mattered, just because I think that they're a very scary team, and I think that no one's going to want to play them. They've got a lot of studs on that team of theirs. Their team is so scary going into the playoffs. So we'll see what happens, but all in all, I think that Sierra Canyon and Mater Dei could be on a path to face one another in the CIF Southern Section playoffs. Well, that is that for the for that whole thing last week. So looking at this week, okay, so I did get a comment from former Set Point guest Daryl Trujillo. He says, in high school girls volleyball, a big Inland Empire showdown this week is happening as Temecula Valley hosts Marietta Valley for the Southwestern League title Wednesday night. Marietta Valley won round 1 on a walk-off ace in 5 by Miley Thurston, who is a signee to St. Mary's. The Southwestern League is actually a very good league, and I'm glad Daryl kind of brought this up. Now, Marietta Valley is kind of on everyone's radar. Marietta Valley had a great finish in the Dave Mose tournament, and I think Marietta Valley can possibly make their way into Division 1. If they get into Division 2, then that team is going to be a very scary Division 2 team. I would not want to play that team in the playoffs because I'll be honest, I think that Marietta Valley team can be very scary. And they almost beat Cathedral Catholic. If they're almost able to beat that team, albeit it was a best 2 out of 3 instead of 3 out of 5, maybe, just maybe, there could be the possibility of Marietta Valley having a deep playoff run. So looking at last week's playoff ranking, or not the girls volleyball rankings from the CIF Southern Section, I don't know if they've modified it for this week just because, oh boy, hold on. Excuse me. I had a quick sneeze right there. Still, in case you if you've kind of figured it out in my voice, I'm still kind of getting over a little cold. I'm over it for the most part. I mean, I'm still kind of in the aftermath stage, but I've gotten over it for the most part. I'm not like bedridden sick. I kind of caught this cold like late Tuesday. I blame working at my other job, but I digress. But I was in bed for most of Wednesday, and thankfully I was well enough to do my second job and my boring first job, but I digress. But looking at the rankings from last week from the CIF Southern section, Sierra Canyon, Mater Dei, Huntington Beach, Marymount, Mira Costa. That changed with Huntington Beach losing to Los Alamitos. So very interesting, if you ask me. And honestly, I think I really think we're in for a very fun CIF Southern section playoffs. But yeah, I think Temecula Valley, they're always a good girls volleyball team. They obviously weren't really great last year. They lost in the second round to Long Beach Wilson, who had Chloe Preventnikov, who's playing at Pepperdine, and Bobby Gubbins, who's now playing beach volleyball at Stanford. But I think Temecula Valley and Marietta Valley is going to be a very good matchup. So thank you, Daryl, for bringing that to my attention. So there's that right there. It's not like the most biggest, flashiest, and most glamorous matchup, but it's still worth noting. So Tuesday, we have, in terms of nationally ranked on ranked matches, you have Keller of Keller, Texas, playing at number 1 Byron Nelson. So those rankings are courtesy of Max Preps, and I don't really talk a whole lot about Texas volleyball, but Byron Nelson, big number 1 in the nation, is so big. Their only loss was to Highland, and if I recall correctly, it might have been the Ann Kang tournament. So you have that right there, which I think is pretty darn cool if you ask me. And then also on Tuesday, you have Redondo, number 23 Redondo Union at number 15 Mira Costa. Now, Redondo Union beating Mira Costa at Mira Costa in a best 3 out of 5 match is going to be very tough. I know they just beat him in the Redondo Power Classic a couple weekends ago, but I think if they beat him in a best 3 out of 5 match, that's going to solidify them as a top 5 seed, if not top 4 seed. I don't think they're going to surpass Mira Costa just because if I recall correctly, Mira Costa beat Palos Verdes, and that pretty much solidifies them as a top, as near the league champion of the Bay League. Because the only way Mira Costa loses out on the Bay League championship is if they just lose out. And I don't think and let's be honest, Mira Costa is not losing out because Mira Costa is just too good. But looking at Mira Costa this week, they're still very good. They've got Millie McGee, who I will be seeing the dad of, who will be hosting the Newport Beach 4-man beach volleyball tournament this weekend. And they beat Palos Verdes and El Segundo in their last matches against Redondo Union. And Redondo Union is 2 games back, or 1.5 games back of Mira Costa. So the only thing Redondo Union has to play for is maybe playoff seeding, but who knows? They can't surpass Mira Costa. So I think Costa's locked in at 4. Marymount should be the 3 seed unless they lose. Mater Dei should be the 2 seed unless they lose to Orange Lutheran, which is also kind of fighting for playoff positioning, though I don't think Olu will be in Division 1. I imagine, and then Santa Margarita, I guess it's worth noting to talk about them. They're kind of fighting for playoff position. They haven't clinched second place in the Trinity League, but I imagine they're going to be in Division 2 just because they lost to Orange Lutheran last Thursday, and that was a big loss for them. I imagine if they didn't lose to Olu, they might have been in Division 1, but that's actually better just because Division 2, they look like a very scary team in Division 2. I say that even though they lost last year to Newport Harbor, but I digress. But Mira Costa Redondo Union, back to that matchup, is going to be a very fun match. Then on Thursday, we have Corona del Sol of Tempe, Arizona, playing at number 21 Xavier College Prep. Now, it's not nationally ranked, but Corona del Sol is always a very good team in Arizona. And Xavier College Prep is also very good, having been nationally ranked. So if I'm Corona del Sol, I'm basically throwing everything in the kitchen sink at Xavier College Prep. I think it's going to be a very fun matchup right there. But that's going to do it for some high school girls volleyball. Remember, this weekend, the CIF Southern Section brackets will be released at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So if you're on the Hawaiian side of things, I feel sorry for you, but I digress. All right, but before we close off the show, we have to talk a little about UCLA men's volleyball. So last week, they just hired their new head coach, John Hawks, who is a former assistant under John Speraw. And he was the former Loyola of Chicago men's volleyball coach. So I think it's a good hire. In my opinion, I think since John Hawks has familiarity not only in Southern California, but with the UCLA men's volleyball program, he did play Balboa Bay Volleyball, and I think he was a coach for Balboa Bay Volleyball Club. I think John Speraw is going to thrive at that UCLA head coach position. Now, it's going to take some time to pick up the pieces and replace some of the notable players like Ethan Champlin and whatnot, but they have some really darn good players for this year as they've got Sean Kelly who comes in. They obviously have Andrew Rowan, who's fantastic. They have, I'm blanking on the guy's name. The other Loyola high school boys volleyball player's name. Of course I'm blanking on his name, but I'm probably forgetting about his name, and it's going to come to me. I know it. But they have him, and they have a lot of talented players in terms of their arsenal this year. Now, will it be easy for them to repeat as champions? Of course not. I don't think UCLA is going to have any easy path in terms of repeating as champions. But in my opinion, I think UCLA is still going to be a top team to watch for. And don't be surprised if they do three-peat. If they three-peat, then with a new head coach, that's going to be something special. Excuse me for one quick second. Sorry about that. My nose was getting a little itchy, so yeah. But yeah, that. I think it's a great hire in my opinion. I think hiring John Hawks, who has that familiarity, is so big right there, and I think that can go such a long way to bringing in not only outside recruits, but so many SoCal recruits, because Southern California can be quite a bit of a hodgepodge right there in terms of like talent for boys volleyball. And Cooper Robinson is his name. Yeah, I kind of had to look it up, but Cooper Robinson also is a big returnee for UCLA's men's volleyball team. And I know they lost Merrick McHenry as well, but I think that UCLA will be just fine in terms of its team for this season. Excuse me for one quick second. Sorry about that. I had to blow my nose. My nose was ready to run out the door. I'm so sorry, everybody. But yeah, that's that for UCLA men's volleyball. I think it's a great hire. But now this kind of begs the question: who will be the new head coach at Loyola men's volleyball, or Loyola Chicago for their men's volleyball team? I haven't really given it too much thought. I mean, they have a lot of good returnees. They have Parker Van Buren, who actually has one more year of eligibility. They have Daniel Fabakovic, who had a great freshman year. They have Jake Reed, who had a fantastic year. I think Colt Schobel is going to be the setter for Loyola Chicago. It's going to be quite an interesting hiring process on who will be the new head coach for Loyola Chicago's men's volleyball team. And maybe we might get I don't see another head coach leaving their head coaching position for that, unless of course it's like unless it's like a coach that's like underneath Loyola Chicago. If it's a team that's underneath Loyola Chicago, like maybe Lewis, even though I don't think Dan Friend is going to leave that position, I expect a team a coach to leave their said team for Loyola Chicago. But I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. And maybe I'll probably put more deep thought into this and who some candidates might be for the new head coaching position in terms of Loyola Chicago men's volleyball. But it's a time will tell process, and I can't wait to see who will be their new head coach. But that's going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you. I imagine Set Point is not going to be on Monday. It's either going to be earlier on Monday or it's going to be on Tuesday, just because I hate to use this as an excuse, but the Chargers play on Monday Night Football, and I'm probably going to be watching that. I know all my volleyball friends are probably going to be heartbroken and disappointed, and I hate having to move Set Point to a different day. But hopefully, I got next Monday off. Then maybe I could do the show a little early. Maybe I could do it at like 1 p.m. We'll see. But for everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourself a great rest of the week. I will see you all on Saturday in Newport Beach for the Newport Beach 4-man beach volleyball tournament, which I think is going to be super fun times. It's going to be on 32nd Street by the Newport Pier. Come say hi to me. Come maybe chat with me about volleyball, and you'll get to see some amazing beach volleyball talk. Have a great rest of the week. Enjoy the volleyball action, and I will see you probably Friday for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Peace!